I want to recognize the gentleman from Texas for 5 minutes, Mr. Pfluger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for your time today. Nothing is more important than a secure election with integrity. We are and we should be setting the standard, the gold standard around the world. Secretary LaRose, you talked about how you stopped the perpetrator in 2021 and how that work really began in 2019 with good preparation, and I think that's key. So what actions are states or the federal government currently not taking right now that prevent us and protect any threats in the future, 2, 4, 5, 6 years from now?
Thank you, Congressman. Of course, the threats constantly emerging. The bad guys are always coming up with creative new ways to do things, and that's why we can't. One step that all states should take, that we've taken in Ohio, is that your chief elections officer should have a CISO, a chief information security officer, somebody who focuses solely on that work of cybersecurity. You should have a vulnerability disclosure policy if you don't already. If there's a hole in your fence, you need to know about it, and the vulnerability disclosure policy is a way to do just that. Again, there are a lot of other things like Albert sensors that are available from our partners with DHS. If you don't have those at your county boards of elections, you should do that. That allows for that remote monitoring. So again, if something goes wrong on a Saturday morning or a Friday night in the middle of the weekend, you can know about it before everybody comes back to work on Monday, and you can mitigate the problem right then and there. Those are just a few of the steps, but again, it's about constantly monitoring emerging threats, and that's why our partnership with CISA is so crucial.
Well, thank you for taking those steps and ensuring that we do have faith in the system, and whether it's real or perceived, we have to get to a point where we have faith in our election system. Ms. Oliver, it's disturbing to read. Thank you for your 16 years of work, and it's really disturbing to hear your testimony, to read about the doxing, to hear about the threats. That should never happen, and we should all, as elected officials, and as was eloquently mentioned, condemn that. And I'm interested to hear, not just how that made you feel, but how does it make you feel to now see Supreme Court justices being doxxed, and groups encouraging people to go to restaurants and intimidate those individuals?
Thank you, Congressman. Violence has no place in our democracy. Threats of violence and harassment really undermine our democracy. And frankly, it doesn't matter which party, what level of public official. I think we're seeing this become more prevalent. And so that's deeply concerning, because as it becomes more prevalent, more individuals who may be inclined to engage in such behavior are looking at these examples and saying, well, if these folks are doing it, we should engage in that too. It might push folks over the edge to engage. It has no place in democracy, period, no matter who we're talking about.
You're right. It's very disturbing to see those that will not condemn those actions, that won't hold people accountable for trying to use the force, the threat of force, or any sort of intimidation, and disturbing to hear your testimony. Thank you very much. Mr. Kelly, I'm interested in your thoughts on, just the verification and knowing who is who, running a good election system, and understanding and how important it is to verify who's voting. Do you believe that it should be a requirement to verify those who are voting in your elections, and would you like to see that centralized at the federal level?
Thank you, Congressman, for the question. Of course, I was operating under California law, which did not allow for identification to be presented in person. And so as an election official, I can kind of see the value in that, in terms of showing your ID, just like when you fly on an aircraft. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea to show at a polling place, but that's above my pay grade, and a policy discussion that election officials shouldn't be making.
Well, Mr. Kelly, I think it's incumbent upon all of us. I mean, this is a good hearing for us to come together as experts in the field, you guys as experts, us asking the questions. But, I find it hard to believe. I mean, those that are getting into the Capitol today most likely have to provide an ID to get into the Capitol building, to verify who they are. And yet in states, if we're not able to verify, I think your voice matters. And I would say it's actually, not above your pay grade. You are the expert in this, and need to be, advocating for those policies. So I think I find it hard to look at some of the federal policies and proposals that are coming forward to say that we maybe don't need to have an ID, we don't need to show who we are, we don't need to prove that the system, and give what my colleague on the other side of the aisle just said, which is the perception of a good system that has integrity and character. I know I'm past my time, so thank you to all the witnesses. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.